Hello, everyone. Welcome to Approaching Your Future. I'm glad to see everyone today. Today is just me, guys, so it's gonna be a fun little one-on-one. But welcome to Approaching Your Future. As I always say, without further ado, I will be introducing it. So, hello, everybody. Welcome to Approaching Your Future with your host Danna. And unfortunately, V is not here today, but it's just Danna today. Where we take steps towards our goals. And today we will be discussing American women's history. So the reason why we chose this topic today is because we've been going through Women's History Month, and it's been a beautiful month to celebrate women. In fact, of course, as we all know, we should celebrate the women in our life every single day. But it is important to also stop and remind ourselves that this month is a great month to stop and read more about women's history, what they've done, the input that has happened in American history due to what women have done, throughout time. So we're going to be going over a few history facts, a few pointers from American history and how women have influenced it. So let's go and check it out, guys. I will be sharing screen in 1 second. All right. So here you guys can see my screen. This is history.com, and it's always recommended if you guys want to learn a bit about history. But here's where we talk a bit about Women's History Month and how women have changed different forms and societal structures in the United States, right? So we start women's history with a really good point in the timeline, which is Sojourners. So I will be reading this, and this is in 1776. Okay. Abigail Adams, who is the future First Lady of Founding Father John Adams, makes a plea to him and the Continental Congress to remember the ladies and be more generous and favorable to them than your ancestors. Do not put such unlimited power into the hands of the husbands. Remember, all men would be tyrants if they could. If particular care and attention is not paid to the ladies, we are determined to foment a rebellion and will not hold ourselves bound by any laws in which we have no voice or representation. So this is an extremely important point in history for American women and women's history, right? Here we see the future First Lady penning a letter that is a bit different and a bit like not as well. I guess like during that time, women didn't have that freedom of speech as we do now. So as we see, this letter is a shot in the dark. but it does change the way in which we are respected, and the way in which we fall into the system today. There is an influence that. So in the first Women's Rights Convention, organized by women, the Seneca Falls Convention is held in New York with 300 attendees. This is in 1848, okay? The organizers include Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Lucretia Mott. And there's 68 women that attend with 32 men, including Frederick Douglass. This sparks decades of activism after that, and it leads to the passage of the 19th Amendment, granting women the right to vote. So this is one of the most important events in the history of women in the United States. And this goes on to later on grant us the 19th Amendment, right? In 1849, now we go to Elizabeth Blackwell, who becomes the first woman to graduate from medical school, and this happens in the United States. She was born in England, but she graduated from Geneva College in New York, and she had the highest grades in her entire class. So imagine that in 1849, okay, already when universities have been around for a while. This is the first time a woman graduates from med school. And now we see that there's so many amazing women in our lives and everyone's lives that have graduated and are going to med school. In fact, I have many friends going to med school. I know Victor does too. So it's very interesting to see how that has changed. And then Sojourner's Truth is one of the most famous events in women's history as well. It's a formerly enslaved worker turned abolitionist and women's rights activist, and she delivers her famous "Ain't I a Woman" speech at the Women's Rights Convention in Akron, Ohio, where she says, "And ain't I a woman? Look at me. Look at my arm. I have plowed and planted and gathered into barns, and no man could head me. Ain't I a woman? I could work as much and eat as much as a man, when I could get it, and bear the lash as well. Ain't I a woman? I have borne 13 children and seen most of all sold off to slavery. And when I cried out with my mother's grief, none but Jesus heard me. Ain't I a woman?" I think that is probably one of the most impactful speeches ever done by women in American history. And it is a speech that I think that everyone should know. I think a lot of people in American schools learn about this, but this speech it's very, because it's both, it has different aspects of it, right, guys? So it's both done by a woman in a women convention and in a time and place where women were not as respected. Not only that, this is a Black woman, a former slave, and she's talking about how she's being treated. So even the way in which the speech is created and the syntax of the sentences, it's super interesting because we see Southern accent, we see the different slang. So, and that is, I think, the beauty of it. It's the rawness. Is that how you say raw? I think so. It's the how raw it is, So then in 1869, the legislature of the Territory of Wyoming passes America's first women's suffrage law. Okay, and women's suffrage is the movement of activism towards granting women the right to vote, granting women the right to hold office, the right to work as much as men do, and the Wyoming becomes the 44th state admitted to the Union and becomes the first state to allow women the right to vote. The first state. This is in 1869. Okay, so now we start with the suffrage movement and the 19th Amendment. So as I was saying before, women's suffrage is a very important movement, especially in American history. In 1869, we see Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton. They found the National Women's Suffrage Association. And this coordinated the movement on a national level, right? And the group teamed with different associations, and then they become this huge movement that takes over the United States throughout the end of the 1800s, right? And Margaret Sanger opens the first birth control clinic, and this is in 1916. It's I love that they put this here. Because this is the precursor to today's like Planned Parenthood, right, that we know of. So this is very interesting. The 1916 is the first birth control clinic that opens in the United States in Brooklyn. and it's deemed illegal under the Comstock laws, which forbids birth control, and back then it forbid birth control, right? In 1917, um, a longtime activist along with the National Women's Suffrage Association, she's sworn in as the first woman elected to Congress as member of the House of Representatives. And this is a great event and a great change in the world of the United States and in the Constitution, right? So in 1920, the ratification of the 19th Amendment happens to the U.S. Constitution, and it declares the right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex. And this is nicknamed the Susan B. Anthony Amendment, as we had said originally, how much influence she has had in not only in the 19th Amendment, but in the women's suffrage movement, right? So in 1932, and this is a cool one because we all know this one, Amelia Earhart becomes the first woman and second pilot ever to fly solo nonstop across the Atlantic. We all know Amelia Earhart's story, but I think it's a beautiful story, and we should all check it out. It also, I think, if I remember correctly, it ends up being a bit sad. But Amelia Earhart changed the way in which women fly, and as you can see her here on the screen, she changed the way. Oh, wait, you actually can see her, but I will show you guys a picture later. But she changed the way in which women relate to aviation, right? And then comes in Rosa Parks and the civil rights and equal pay and everything that goes after the 1950s, right? So Rosa Parks is the woman who refuses to give up her seat to a white man in Montgomery, okay? I think this is in Alabama. And this is probably one of the biggest events of the civil rights movement. And you guys can check out our podcast about civil rights to learn more about this. But this is one of the biggest events in the civil rights movement where she says no, that she will not give up her seat and go sit in the back. And this is done by a woman. And then in 1960, the FDA approves the birth control. So that is very interesting. In 1963, John F. Kennedy signs into the Law of Equal Pay Act, and that this prohibits sex-based wage discrimination between men and women. And in 64, President Lyndon B. Johnson signs the Civil Rights Act into law. Okay? And this means that there's no discrimination based on race, religion, national origin, or sex. There can't be any employment discrimination. And so I want to show you guys a bit more of some contemporary here, as you see here, some of the contemporary history in the US, which is, I think it's beautiful. For example, if you guys haven't seen this movie, Battle of the Sexes, it's starred with Emma, not Emma Watson, guys. I'm going to tell you in 1 second her name. Emma Stone, exactly. Thank you. I got a little distracted there, but yes, it's Emma Stone. Emma Stone is the one who does the movie Battle of the Sexes, I think, with Steve Carell, if I'm not mistaken. And this is a great movie to watch because it talks about a big moment in Women's History Month, which is when Billie Jean King comes in, right? And she wins. She beats Bobby Riggs and takes $100,000 as the winner, right? So here we talk a bit about Title IX. Title IX comes into the laws with President Richard Nixon, which is an organization that goes in that helps maintain, helps take care of any type of abuse that happens in the college, any type of discrimination with sexuality or sex or anything of that sort. They usually are related to all different universities and colleges, and all of your colleges have a Title IX office, right? And in Roe v. Wade, that this is a really landmark U.S. Supreme Court case. It protects women's legal rights to an abortion, and it is a very important case. Although it is a delicate topic, I think everyone should know the Roe v. Wade decision and its case, at least the ins and outs of this case. So then we go into 1973, where, as I was saying, the Battle of the Sexes, tennis great Billie Jean King Riggs in straight sets during an exhibition match aired on primetime TV, and it drawed over 90 million viewers. I thought it would set us back 50 years if I didn't win that match, King says after the match. It would ruin the women's tour and affect all women's self-esteem. Good thing she won. Um, Good thing she won, right? So now we see Sandra Day O'Connor is sworn in by President Ronald Reagan as the first woman to serve on the U.S. Supreme Court. Okay, she retired in 2006 after serving for 24 years. And then in 83, we have on the Space Shuttle Challenger, Sally Ride becomes the first American woman in space. And you can see a picture of her here. That is a great moment of American history for women. And a few other I guess a few other important events that come about. At least all of these are big events that happen year to year, right? With different women outdoing themselves and continue to outdo themselves, right? But there's a few things that happened recently, and I think that are more connected to pop culture in that sense, that are super important, you know? For example, we have Serena Williams becoming the best tennis player of the world, and her sister Venus being the best player of the US. Like, they become the best tennis players in the world, and that comes after this woman from Battle of the Sexes, right? Billie Jean King. It's very interesting. We also see Nancy Pelosi becomes the first female Speaker of the House in 2007. Hillary Clinton becomes the first woman to receive a presidential nomination for a major political party, as we saw in 2016, where she was head-to-head with Donald Trump. And then we see that there's, for example, Kamala Harris, who becomes the first vice president. Not only the first, she becomes the first Black female vice president. And I think that is one of the biggest changes we've seen in our world. Like, today we have a president and a vice president that's a woman, and she's a woman of color, and she's representing us. And apart from that, we have different things that I think are cool. For example, I was reading and I saw that in 2002, Halle Berry was the first woman, she was the first African American woman to win and to be nominated and win an Oscar, if I'm not mistaken. In fact, I'm gonna confirm that with you guys because I thought it was such a cool fact. Here it is. In March 24, 2002, Halle Berry becomes the first African American woman to win the Oscar for Best Actress. And this is in the film Monsters Ball. And that is such a big moment because imagine that it is 2002. It took until 2002 for an African American woman to win the Oscar for Best Actress. The other thing that I saw that was really cool I wanted to show you guys is, of course, in the Sandra Day O'Connor, oh, I did say that before, I apologize. The Gloria Steinem ad that becomes, everyone knows about it. It's the ad where she's like this, like where she's like doing the, I don't know if you guys can see me right now. I'm gonna show you, one second. Look. Let me show you right now. Here. There we go. So when this comes out, this is in 1971, right? Gloria Steinem starts Miss Magazine. And this is the cover of it, right? But just so you guys know, this symbol comes about for when women start helping men out in factories and all the industry, when men start going out to war during World War II. And that's when women start working and taking over men's work. And this image that is very famous starts coming around, right? So that's one of the very cool things that we should keep around. Like, for example, when the men started going to war, we were the ones to take over the economic well-being of this country. But yes, that is what I wanted to show you guys. It's a bit of women's history and a bit of information about American women's history in specific, right? What has happened and how American women have changed the course. And if we think about it in like more open, like in an open way, and more of a general popular American culture way, we can think of how many women can we think of that have changed the way in which we function. Like, for example, like if I talked about music, We talk about how Beyonce changed the way in which music was released and which albums were released. How it became digital drops, and the way they were marketed was completely different, right? And we have that with different things. Rihanna becomes one of the biggest all through different industries, one of the biggest entertainers and biggest business women. She has a different, she has the laundry line, she has the makeup line, she is has the Puma Fenty line, she has the music. So she starts doing all of these things to elevate and scale her business, and it is beautiful to see because we see it changing the world, right, guys? We see how women have genuinely influence and change the world in today's day and age, and how important they are to the well-being of society, of the country, of economy, of everything. And it really cannot function without the presence of women. We are both, I think, the creators of life and the creators of structure in some way, you know. So I think that is a pretty cool thing to know and to be proud of. If you're a woman, if you identify as a female, always be proud of that. Wear that badge proud, and make sure to educate yourself in the ways that women have influenced the world, because it's always good to know. And celebrate, love, give space to other women around your life to speak up and to voice their thoughts and to voice their findings and to grow. You know, I think it's a great month to ask your mom about her life, to ask your grandma about her life, what happened growing up, and to really celebrate the women in your life. Because we should do that every day, as I said at the beginning of the podcast. But this month is a great month to stop and reflect on it, and reflect on how much you have done so and what you can do in the future. So that's it for today, guys. Thank you for joining Approaching Your Future. I am gonna be doing the outro right now, but it was great to have you guys. Of course, it's just me talking to you guys. It's not as fun as we usually do it, talking back and forth, me and V, or with other guests. But next week we'll have an incredible guest in the podcast, Tawani. So definitely don't miss that one. But without further ado, as I usually say, that's it for today, guys. Thank you for tuning in to Approaching Your Future with your host, Dana, and usually V, but today is just Dana, where we discuss different cultural aspects of life in the United States. And we will see you again next Friday at 2 p.m. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn your notifications on. And please make sure to follow us on Instagram at approach_USA to keep up with all the latest updates. We are going to have in-person activities for our students. So if you're one of our students, go check that out and sign up. It's going to be so fun. And as always, check our live stream, check what we're doing, because we have a lot of cool activities planned for our students and for our non-students as well. So I hope you enjoy this podcast, guys. This was it for today's. And if you guys have any question, you guys are welcome to send us a DM, comment on this podcast, and we'll be happy to answer and help you guys out. But we'll see you soon. We hope you had a great time. And that's it, guys. If you guys have any other questions, let us know, and celebrate the women in your life, because that is the most important thing you can do during this month. All right? Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you for being here.